Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are and wherever you may be. Welcome to another exciting panel of this week's virtual symposium. My name is Matt Winn. I'm the VP of Communications at HID. Of course, more importantly, a big nerd and ESG enthusiast, and I will be your humble moderator for today. So, in this panel, we're going to explore a topic that is no longer optional for organizations that are looking to thrive in a complex and fast moving world. ESG, of course, environmental, social, and governance programs, and how they're becoming a powerful strategic enabler for your business. Now, ESG has often been seen as a compliance box or worse, a PR exercise. And as someone who is in PR, trust me, I have seen the worst of it. But that narrative is changing fast. So, from investor expectations and regulatory pressures to consumer demands and talent attraction, ESG initiatives are emerging as critical drivers of long term value, innovation, and competitive advantage. So, to drive this competitive advantage and associated value, today we're going to talk best practice for setting up and sustaining ESG programs within your teams and your companies, all with an eye on a strategic framework and how you can best rally your program around core values that stick. So, our hope is that by the end of this panel, you'll have practical insights into how an ESG program can unlock value, not just for the planet and our society, but for your bottom line too. So, that being said, let's start with our introductions of our experts, shall we? So, first up, we have Amy Musanti, the Director of Sustainable Building Solutions for Assa Abloy in New Haven, Connecticut. She joined Assa Abloy in 2007 and has held various positions across numerous divisions across customer service, marketing, sales, and sustainability. Now, Amy helps to make the group's products and processes more sustainable by supporting business opportunities for Assa Abloy solutions that contribute to energy efficiency and wellness in the commercial and institutional construction industry. Amy, it's quite the bio, quite the expert. Thanks for offering your insights. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. It's great to be here with everyone and happy to share some insights. I like to say that my perspective is very valuable when it comes to sustainability because my background isn't formally and with an education in sustainability. And so I have a way of empathizing with those who are just learning sustainability for the first time. So it's nice to be with everyone and thanks for hosting us, Matt.
Excellent. My pleasure. My pleasure. All right. And baking here with me in Austin, Texas is Travis Henley, who is our Global Operations Sustainability Health and Safety Manager at HID. Now, in this role, Travis leads the integration of ESG principles into operational strategy with a focus on holistic sustainability, safety, and long term value creation. Travis has over 20 years of experience, including roles in quality, environmental, health, safety, and he brings a grounded yet forward thinking perspective to continuous improvement. So, Travis, thanks for being a part of the panel. Mind introducing yourself a bit further for the audience?
Of course. And first off, thanks for being able to me being able to be a panelist as well. So I think your intro just about sums it up, and that was a mouthful, just hearing it, right? So as you mentioned, I'm based in HID's headquarters in Austin, Texas. And as most people may know already, HID is a division of Assa Abloy. And because of that, I also work collaboratively and cross-functionally with the Assa teams, including Amy, on SBTI initiatives from Assa Abloy. So I think this what it does is it allows us to synergize a bit more and improve our opportunities through the lens of value creation as an organization, and ensure that we have controls in place to mitigate any potential risk down the road. So.
Fantastic. Thanks, Travis. And both said it best. Value creation is what this panel is about today. So let's get started and help our friends here in the audience build and sustain valuable creation ESG program. So first topic we have is how do we use a strategic framework? We got to start somewhere and we got to start somewhere strategically, right? To help us be a strategic enabler. So whether you're setting up your first ESG program or you're looking to sustain and scale an existing one, a strategic framework is really going to serve as that foundation. You need something to point to, you need something that helps guide your activities, and of course, you need to demonstrate value to the organization. So, Amy, big topic, big question, but can you help share with the audience a bit more about your program's strategic framework? I believe that one of your core tenets, which I love, is sustainability is at the foundation of everything we do. So, tell us more about your strategic framework within your program.
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of the foundation and everything that we build off of. And we're very lucky as an organization because sustainability is woven into everything we do. And that has been a long time coming and still also a work in progress at the same time. But I would say when we're thinking about best practice, so we're a big global organization, right? And we have a very large footprint. We have a lot of employees. We have operations all over the country we're in and the world. Um, a way that helps to guide us in understanding what's important for a sustainability strategy is one, understanding from a materiality side of things. And you'll see a lot of organizations digging into that and surveying their biggest stakeholders, and that could be their internal teams, that could be investors, and that could be customers, which would be end users, architects, designers. So it's really helpful to identify what those needs are and then prioritize them. And what we've found to be really interesting and important to us is that there are two kinds of customers when it comes to sustainability and how we kind of divide or develop our strategy. One is for those types of customers that truly understand sustainability and how our products can contribute to a sustainable built environment. And then we have another set of customers who are just kind of beginning their sustainability journey, and that's perfectly fine as well. And so it's important to develop content and material that makes sense for them too.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Now, even though I'm in communications, everything is about targets. We have to have something to measure against. So, Travis, big question for you. Tell us more about science-based targets and how do you weave that into your strategic framework?
Yeah, so science-based targets, or SBTIs, are strategic goals that align companies' emission reductions with climate science, essentially that aims to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius per the Paris Agreement. We commit to measurable reductions across Scope 1, 2, and especially Scope 3 emissions, as this is actually a very large part of our overall emissions. In fact, it makes up over 90% of our total footprint when it comes to emissions. So it's quite significant. Sustainability has been integrated since 2007 in general for ASSA ABLOY, right, and its divisions. So I think SBTI, the Science-Based Targets initiatives, were just kind of a natural progression. So over a period of time, it just made sense for the organization. When you embed science-based targets into your strategic framework, you're not just aligning with the climate science, but you're also building operational resilience, unlocking innovation, and creating long-term value. And again, creating that value proposition for the organization and standing out as a leader in the industry.
Awesome. Very good. Now, speaking of the industry, we have a lot of people who are interested in that, and those people are investors. So, Amy, tell me about that. How should they be involved, right? Because we're talking about value, bottom line. How should investors be a part of the ESG program?
Yeah, so we benefit a lot from their feedback during our materiality analysis. And then annually, we have a really great event that's hosted. It's our sustainability roundtable, and it's a chance for everyone in the organization to actually they can log in to the webinar, but it's mainly a chance for our global investors to listen in on the ways that we've made improvements, and that could be from our manufacturing processes, the changes we've made in products, the work that we've done to achieve wins with certain customers around the country and the world. And so it's really interesting because we've found a way to allow the industry to guide us to what's next instead of us saying, all right, well, our sustainability team woke up this morning and this is what we think is going to be the next big thing for our industry. What drives this is what's important to our stakeholders, and our investors are incredibly worldly and educated and find value and relevance in sustainability, not just because it is a strategic business enabler, but because it is the right thing to do. And so their insights help us to make changes along the way and also help us to get out of our own way as a very large organization.
Very well said. Very well said. Okay, so now that we've talked about the importance of a strategic framework, we'll actually walk you through a bit of how ours is structured. And what's cool, I think is cool, at least as a nerd, is that we've really mapped this back to some of our core values and our core business values and our 4 strategic objectives within HID and ASA Abloy. So leverage that as a potential example, but what we'll do is walk you through each of these pillars and we'll be able to answer some questions that you may have and then talk through some of the different stakeholders and pieces you may want to consider when you build the strategic framework of your own. So, going back to our strategic objectives, Travis, I'll give you the first question on this. Now, our first strategic objective is, quote, growth through customer relevance. In other words, why should ESG matter to customers and how does it drive customer value?
Wow. Yeah. I think that's a great question, actually. So, I think that one actually quite it resonates with me a lot, actually. So when we talk about growth through customer relevance, we are essentially asking, are we actually solving problems for our customers? We talk about these types of dynamics in like design thinking and various other aspects. But the reality is, we want to be able to solve a problem for a customer in general, something that matters to them, whether that be an existing issue or an impact or something that they know that they're going to have to head on in the future. So I think for global compliance, ESG is a part of that. Customers are no longer just looking for products that work; they're looking for partners who align with their own values. And I can't tell you how many customer surveys and tenders we receive that include ESG criteria, for example. It's become like a standard part of the conversation, whether we're talking about carbon footprint disclosures or product certifications or supplier sustainability practices. And look, I get it. Customers are under pressure to meet their own sustainability objectives and goals, and they're looking at us to help them get there. So,
Very good. All right, now Amy, you've got maybe a literal $1 million question here, but how do you tie this back to customer value, and more importantly, how can that be monetized?
Mm, Great question. And yeah, to build off of what Travis said, is we see these requests coming in now. And so it all is on our ability to be able to say yes to the customer and to get them what they need. And the core or the foundation of it is understanding where the product came from, how it was made, and what's in it. And we have these higher level global initiatives that we're working towards, especially on the science-based target side of things. But customers are looking for, what's happening at a manufacturing level, what's happening at the point of extraction of your raw materials, and can you give me information that says that you have ethically sourced all of these numerous components to your product, and do you have the documentation to back that up? So it's really understanding what's important to a consumer, even outside of the commercial and institutional construction world and the security industry. Is when we shop for ourselves and our family, we want to know the quality of the products that we're putting in front of ourselves and our family. And that is now really no different than what we're putting into our buildings. And so we've really been tasked by our customers and our stakeholders to push the envelope with areas of human health, social health and equity, ecosystem health and regenerative products, climate health, and then eventually a circular economy.
Very nice. So again, all about how do we identify what customers need, how do we drive value, how do we monetize that, and then how do we display the cost savings or the additional revenue that's been generated as a result of that. Very important to get buy-in, corporate buy-in, investor buy-in. So this is a really great place to start. Now, Amy, you had mentioned something about, again, finding out what the customer needs, and that drives us to another core area for our strategic objectives. And this is all about identifying those needs, finding innovative ways to solve them, and then building products and solutions that actually map back to those needs that solve those problems. And that objective is what we call product leadership through innovation. So, Amy, broad question, but how does ESG and how do ESG programs fit into this idea of product leadership, innovation, and solving customer needs through innovative products and solutions?
Yep. Well, there's a lot of green building certification programs out there right now. And while many of them are optional and chosen by the building owner or the architect and designer, the data that they need encourages us to be innovative with the products that we bring to market. And the it's all kind of tying together, and I'm smiling because I'm thinking back to so many years ago when we were kind of climbing this uphill battle when all of these initiatives first started. We were asked to develop EPDs by architects and designers, and we were told that we wouldn't be given preference unless we had developed this type of documentation. And so initially it was, okay, well, let's put the product under the microscope, and for feared by everyone internally of what we would actually find, and then check a box to say that this documentation was completed. So I'm referring to an environmental product declaration. It shows the entire life cycle of the product. But what it does is it gives us really incredible baseline information that we can utilize to make optimizations to our product. And to utilize our internal tool called the Sustainability Compass, which gives our product development and engineering and innovation teams information about how to increase the recyclability and reusability of a product while decreasing the product's footprint from an operational perspective and from a packaging perspective. So there's been a lot of different types of adoption on the back end and on the internal side that isn't seen by our customers, which gives them these innovative and sustainable and energy efficient products because of those industry demands.
Good question to a good answer to a big question. So Travis, same over to you. How do you see ESG fitting into this idea of product development, innovation, and mapping back to those customer needs? What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, as Amy mentioned, there are a series of tools that Assa Abloy has created in order to help kind of highlight the value proposition of a more sustainable product, right? So whether that be from, internal LCA, life cycle assessments, or just using the Compass calculator. The reality is we have customers that are asking for product-specific emissions. As mentioned earlier, they may have their own organizational goals, their own sustainability goals, and because of that, they lean on us, and in some cases, they're willing to work with us to develop and to be a bit more innovative as well. Likewise, for us, we've had suppliers that we've worked with directly that realize that we have sustainability objectives, and they've literally come to the table and said, "Hey, by the way, if you switch from this material to this material, you can save X amount of emissions, and by the way, it can reduce costs." So it creates a win-win kind of dynamic for the organization to not only have a more sustainable product on the horizon, but also more cost efficient. So that's it's definitely something that we leverage. I think what's positive is for the organization to instill these frameworks. Since we have the frameworks that put in place, we have the tools put in place, we can now incorporate these into our product life cycle management aspects, and in general have sustainability checkpoints. And I think whether people realize it or not, we're embedding ESG into the DNA of how we innovate. They may not see it that way, but it is. So, I mean, if you look at, things like business partner code of conduct, and you look at ethical sourcing requirements and ensuring we have environmental responsibility built into our own strategy, working with suppliers and even holding ourselves accountable. These are all elements of ESG that we're already doing, and it's part of our design principle.
Very nice. All right, so for those of y'all taking notes, we got a few things there that you might want to put into your framework. So sustainability checkpoints, making sure you've got strong supplier relationships, and ingraining this into the culture of everything we do. So all good things for you to consider while you're building your program. Now, I get to sit in the moderator chair and ask the tough questions and not offer any answers to them. So I'm going to really lean into that. But let's take a minute and just talk about this idea of, are we marketing sustainability just for sustainability's sake, to the point to where there's even a term for it known as greenwashing? So one, let's talk about greenwashing for a little bit. What is it in your mind? And then how do we make sure that we're not just marketing sustainability just for the sake of marketing sustainability. So I'll drop that bomb, walk away, and whoever wants to take that question first, feel free to go for it.
Do you want me to chime in, Travis? I have some things to
Yeah,
say,
I think
but
we both have thoughts on this, so go
yeah.
for it, Amy.
Okay, yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I think the term greenwashing is, and you probably see this from the marketing side of things, is just any type of false representation of a company's efforts or offerings, basically saying they're more environmentally friendly than they actually are. And I do want to call attention to another term that we're starting to see, which is green hushing. And so green hushing is the opposite, really. It's deliberately downplaying or hiding sustainability efforts in order to avoid scrutiny from the sustainability side of things. So as any player in the market, you want to stay away from both of those. That's why it's really important to take a long, hard look at the types of information that you are sharing, making sure that you're audit and validating any claims that you make about sustainable products or sustainable processes from a manufacturing level, and make sure that the way that you frame the conversation around sustainability isn't too far-fetched as you're speaking to it. How's that, Travis? Is that a good segue for you?
That is, look, I mean, in the heart of it, this is something that Assa Abloy takes very seriously. I mean, HID as well, right? So we don't take greenwashing lightly. It's something that we recognized early on that we just have to be pragmatic of what we do, how we communicate, make sure that we're not over communicating in some regards. I think I'm a Marvel fan. I don't know about you guys, but I think Spider-Man comes to mind. Uncle Ben has a scene in Spider-Man, right? He says, "With great power comes great responsibility." The same concept. So I can apply that same thing to sustainability. So especially as far as being responsible as far as your communication strategies is concerned. I think it's important for organizations to be honest, transparent, and hold themselves accountable. And I think we do. So when we talk about any disclosures, we have the annual audit reports, the sustainability audits for third party assessed. We have environmental product declarations, things like that. And I think it's important to back up any claims that you have with data. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, third party verified or anything like that, but you have to have data. I think that's where a lot of organizations have gotten themselves into trouble, to be fair, is that they made these claims, but they were very loose claims and no data backing up any context. So we definitely are an organization that are very well aware of that, and we steer clear of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Travis. There's been a lot of very large, well-known global organizations that have been removed from the Science-Based Targets Initiative program because of greenwashing and incorrect and inappropriate reporting. So it's something to keep in mind that even the big ones are not free of this, and so it's really important to keep an eye on the data that's being issued.
Yeah.
Well said. So let's connect some threads here, okay? So we first talked about customer relevance and customer value. We then talked about product innovation. And on the greenwashing side, we want to make sure that anything that we're saying from a communications or a marketing or sales perspective ties back to that customer value, right? So people may or may not want to pay more money for sustainability, but they will pay more money if it's relevant to them, meets their needs, and offers value to themselves and to their customers. So bring those together. And as you're building out your strategic framework, as Amy and Travis mentioned, think about and document how you are going to go and speak about this in the market. Another important thing to think about as you're building your program. Now, Travis, you had mentioned something that maybe someone didn't notice, but it stuck out to me, and that's this idea of a code of conduct. So what is that? Why does it matter? And then how do you incorporate that into your program?
In terms of ESG, I hate to make this reference, but code of conduct is like your Bible. I think a code of conduct is really, really important because it's a reflection of who we are and what we stand for as an organization. So, and I think that's extremely important to have. I mean, think about it for a second. A code of conduct is a foundational. It's how we operate both internally and within our business partners. What I appreciate most is that it's not just a document. It's a living framework. It's something that we can update. It's something that we audit ourselves to. It's something we hold ourselves accountable to. It guides our decisions, shapes our culture, and ensures that our commitments are backed really by integrity and doing things in an ethical and honest way. And in the end, I think this is how, as an organization, you grow responsibly.
Excellent. Thank you. And we had a question from Nina as it related back to the reporting and the data collection piece. And Nina's question is, are we referring to ISO 14001:2015 here?
ISO 14001 is a governance mechanism. It's not necessarily related to products specifically. So, in fact, you don't certify products to ISO 14001, but it is giving a foundational framework in order to hold yourself accountable, to make sure you have measurable targets and performance goals in place. So that can be a part of your ESG strategy, and that certainly is for HID, for ASA. But it's not just that. It's a more holistic view. Since ISO 14001 is generally related to scope 1 and 2 emissions, as well as the social aspects from a health and safety perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. And keep the questions coming. Appreciate it, Nina. And we'll keep that window up so we can answer in real time or at the end, just depending. So appreciate the interaction there. All right. So we have covered our first two strategic objectives, which again serve as that framework model for our ESG program. So let's get into the third one. And again, these are all overlapping and all interwoven, and that's by design. And this one, number 3, is cost efficiency in everything that we do. Pretty self-explanatory, but it essentially guides us to think effectively and efficiently and find improvement areas where we can to be more cost efficient. So Amy, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this? It seems like it's important in terms of demonstrating financial value, both to customers and shareholders. So what are your thoughts on how ESG can lead to cost efficiencies and anything else on the cost efficiency topic?
Yeah, this is what it always comes down to, right? It's like, well, this is very good, but how much does it cost? And also, how much is it saving me, right? And are the efforts that we have initiated on our side being transferred over to our customers? And I think, as far as ESG and just sustainability overall, there are always these hurdles that we come across of there are limitations, and it's due to either real or perceived cost barriers. And so it's really important for us on the manufacturing side to educate and advocate for the work that we've been doing to say the innovation is important to us. Those costs are not translated or transferred over to the customer. So a lot of times you're given an option to purchase a more sustainable or energy efficient or responsible product, but it costs more. And so those barriers have been removed. Many times, or most of the time, like the energy efficient access control solutions that we've developed, that is just the product that the customer gets now. There is no option to select that versus the older or less efficient version of that product. And we had a conversation with a customer who was in just this week about cost and those barriers. And I think a lot of the work that we're doing behind the scenes is, yes, for us to reduce our operating costs, but it's also to eventually make sure that those costs are reduced over the entire life cycle of that product. So when we're installing a product that typically would have components around the entire opening, around the entire frame of that door, those components are now integrated into the face of the lock set. And so that is more efficient because it's using existing infrastructure, but at the same time, there's less labor, there's less installation, and the footprint of that product and that opening is much smaller. So while not every single person that you come across is going to find ESG and sustainability as a relevant or compelling story, regardless of geopolitical landscape, you can always tie sustainability back to an energy efficient story, which ties to cost reduction, and cost savings is relevant to everyone at the table.
Very good. All right, Travis, your turn. Tie ESG to cost efficiency and cost reduction. What do you have?
I've got an anecdotal kind of statement around this. So I recently just replaced my HVAC system at home about a month ago or so, and that that was not pretty. That hurt. It was a small, well, actually, I wouldn't say it's a small expense, but it's a big impact, right? So, as a consumer, though, I had a choice, right? I could go with a less efficient unit that would cost more over time and energy bills, or invest a little bit more upfront in a high efficiency system. And obviously, look, I chose the latter, right? Not just for comfort, but because I knew in the end it would help me mitigate future risks like rising energy prices and increased consumption, right? I think this is what consumers should really think about and actually value a little bit more. And I think they do. They just don't always realize what they're getting. So they're not looking at apples and oranges or apples to apples comparison. So they're looking at apples and oranges. And I think the products that we try to put on the market that draw energy, as to what Amy mentioned earlier, it does show that we are constantly looking at these types of dynamics and how we can not only reduce energy within our own products, but also pass that energy savings on to the customer. Because by one unit, it may not be a significant margin for them, but you have 40 units in a manufacturing location, and it's consistently drawing energy, and it's taking up so much energy and doesn't have any low power modes or anything like that. Yeah, that adds up. So I think for any organization, it becomes a financial liability.
Very good. And then Dr. Alka Kungar sent us a note to hosts and panelists only, so very secretive, but really good point that was made, and mentions, in view of laws like Local Law 97 in New York, essentially on building performance standards, the cost of not doing sustainability poses the risk of having to pay significant dollars or money in fines. So that brings up a good point around cost efficiency and liability reduction and risk reduction. So Amy, do you want to take a stab to comment on that?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Alka. That's a really good point. And yeah, I think every conference and trade show that myself and my colleague Erin have been to recently, Local Law 97 has been brought up. And it's really interesting because you see a lot of owners who just say, well, we don't care, we're just going to pay the fine. We have the money to pay the fines. That can only last for so long before your tenants realize this. So this is unethical behavior that ties back to the core of ESG. And I think honestly, we're starting to see more and more of this, right? So you've got green building certification programs that provide a good foundation for optional guidelines. But then you have local restrictions that need to be followed, or it results in fines. And you see even up in Canada, I mean, they're strictly following a net zero guideline now. So this is something that we're going to continue to see, and it's much easier now to just do the research and start making plans to change versus attempt to go away from it.
Yeah, I would also like to add to that. It's not one state, it's not just localized, right? So we're seeing these things globally. So you have various regulations that are coming down from EU specifically that have a lot of components of sustainability into it. They have, digital product passport that requires transparency of data of carbon emissions for products that are related to construction and construction materials. They have various regulations that organizations just have to align with, because to that point, you could potentially end up paying more in fines than what you want to. So there is a risk mitigation aspect from that.
All right, so lots of things to add to your strategic framework checklist or idea list: cost efficiencies, identifying where value is being driven. One of those could be risk and liability reduction. So lots of good things to think about because, of course, again, if we're in the business of doing business, driving that bottom line ahead and forward is very, very important. And that'll help you get buy-in on your ESG program or help you take it to the next level. So very good conversation there. And thank you, Dr. Alka, for that comment. So let's go to the fourth, and what may some argue be one of the most important ones in terms of driving your ESG program and into the future. And that is what we call our strategic objective of evolution through people. Now, again, pretty self-explanatory, but this really focuses on how we leverage our people talent and our human resources to help meet our goals and, of course, keep those people happy, healthy, and engaged. So, Amy, from your perspective, what's the people element to all of this? How do you get them energized and involved and helping you to set up or sustain your ESG program?
Yes. So I always talk when I'm speaking about sustainability, I would go back and put my professor hat on and talk about the principles of adaptive leadership. And it's how do you get others to come on board with a topic that is important to you, but probably isn't on their list of things to do for the year, right? Everyone's kind of just running in 10 different directions. And the the interesting thing about sustainability and what can be seen as a hurdle for a lot of people is actually really beneficial for us is that you can't get things done unless you go outside of your lane and move outside of your silo. And as humans in general, we're just conditioned to put our blinders on and get things done. And sometimes we think that's by doing it by ourselves. And my team and I and those that we work with have learned so much by getting outside of our lane, and understanding how we can be more inclusive. And sustainability is based on inclusivity in many ways. And so for us, I think it's really important, especially for those that are just starting out with a sustainability program or just even looking into whether an ESG program is something that would be good for their organization, is to, just because you're in the sustainability group doesn't mean that others can't participate. And we've learned a lot from the process improvements that IT makes, the way that our supply chain team interacts with suppliers on a global level and the questions that they ask for. We've seen a lot from human resources and the work they do to give back to their local communities and to reward their employees for just showing up and being good people every single day and working collaboratively with our customers. So it looks different. We see this that, we see a lot of organizations who will just, plan something on Earth Day and then forget about it for the rest of the year. But I think community involvement is really important. Making improvements at your sites for your offices, for those employees that are there every single day. Training your internal teams to show them what the value proposition of sustainability is so that they feel compelled to share this story, to implement sustainability initiatives at home, and then to talk about it with their customers. And then to acknowledge the work that's being done by those around you, who are really we see this every single day, have become kind of unspoken sustainability champions. And that could look like people that are just working to set up a recycling program around the office, to others that find greater ways to give back or to teach customers the many things that we've done around the world as an organization, as also obviously with sustainability.
Very nice. And Travis, we're people talking to people about people. So how do we rally people around our ESG efforts?
Yeah, I mean, this is really important to me because, coming from quality and then environmental health and safety, influence is everything, right? So culture is everything, and being able to get people to make right decisions, I think, is a big part of what we'd like to see. When we talk about sustainability in general, I always speak of taking a people-centric approach, and at its core, that's in my opinion, it's critical. ESG isn't just about, carbon emissions or compliance metrics. It's about culture, leadership, and how we show up for people every day, right? Um, from an engagement perspective, we have communication campaigns, green teams, globally, actually, not just one site. Earth Day engagement at various locations throughout the globe. We have other, various activities throughout the year to really connect our employees on celebrating our differences, while we also show that we care for our working environment. So I think that's important because it does build a sense of community, and I think it's important that not only community, but a little bit of camaraderie, and it also highlights the importance of making more sustainable choices. And look, I know in general our sustainability objectives may not resonate with everyone, but that said, I also know that most people want to feel seen and heard, and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, right? And in fact, I'm willing to bet that a lot of our employees are probably already engaged with certain activities, maybe local charitable organizations, community cleanup events, or even make donations to those that support the less fortunate, right? And these are all elements of ESG. They just don't call it that. So, but the point is, it really kind of settles on the foundation of taking a people-centric approach and fostering, I guess, positive behaviors.
Very good. Okay, well, that's going to move us pretty quickly into our summary section. But before we summarize, I want to summarize a little bit as well, because we've covered a lot. So everything that we're talking about is how do you build and sustain your own ESG program? And we've been really trying to walk you through how we are currently doing it, from mapping it back to our strategic objectives. So some things for you to think about in summary of the 4 key areas that we talked about. First and foremost, you want to make sure that you are offering customer value and identifying those areas where you can point back to that. How do you find this as part of your ESG, and how do you tout that as well? Part of that is very naturally using sustainability as part of your product roadmap. How can you innovate sustainably and meet your customer needs through products and solutions that map to your ESG goals? Again, back to science-based targets like Travis talked about as part of your strategy. Of course, everything about value also has to do with the bottom line for your organization. So how do you find cost efficiencies, cost savings, and then how do you work to invest that in other areas if you are able, or at least be able to provide more shareholder or value to your customer base? And last but not least, you need people to help you out with this. So find your champions, find your enthusiasts, find those who want to participate and help rally around this, and of course, evangelize your efforts as well, all making sure that you don't greenwash or green hush along the way. So was that a fair summary, team? Did I do a good job on that?
100% on point.
Okay,
That's
excellent.
impressive, Matt.
Thanks. I've been taking notes. I've learned a lot myself on this. So, all right, that was my summary, but I want to hear both of your summaries to really provide some key takeaways and some final thoughts for those who've been in attendance. So again, we've covered a lot. We could probably dedicate an entire panel to each of these individual topics and then some, but the real crux about today's session is all about ESG being a strategic enabler. So Travis, I'm going to give first pass to you to answer the overarching question for today, and that is, how would you say that an ESG program can and should be a strategic enabler for an organization?
Yeah, I think what people need to realize is I'm willing to bet most organizations already have components of ESG built in. So they already want to have talent retention. They want to have positive talent acquisition as well. So they want to be able to get good talent in, and everybody believes in fair wages and equal rights for employees, and making sure that we have programs in place, emergency employee assistance programs, and various other aspects, right? At least to cover on the social side. So then you have the environmental aspect, right? To where, from an organization's perspective, or should be an organization's goal, to reduce their overall cost for operation, right? So which sustainability is definitely a lever they can pull on for that. So if you're like any other organization and are looking at how much you're paying in energy cost, or looking at de-risking your profiles and energy profiles, then that's definitely something to take a look at. So and when it comes to it depends on the organization, right? So that depends on the size of the organization. When you look at a, I don't know, maybe a steel mill in rural Alaska, maybe, it's not a big deal for them for ESG strategies, but for any organization that's looking to scale and become global and have a lot of stakeholders that have expectations from them, then they have to, it's a forcing function to build in ESG strategies into their own process. So.
Excellent. Thanks, Travis. All right, Amy, you get final word. So bring us home again.
All
How
right.
would you say that an ESG program can and should be a strategic enabler for an organization?
All right. Grand finale here. And I'm going to go back to some of our Asabli core values and beliefs and just leave it at that. And the most important one is the empowerment, and that is that we have trust in people. And given that in an incredibly decentralized organization, that allows our teams to really understand where ESG fits in to what they do every single day. So showing sustainability as the foundation of the organization, whether you have 2 people in your company or whether you have 200,000 people in your company, it ties back to the footprint that we leave, the future, and the legacy of what we do every single day. And so the empowerment and trusting in our people to make sure that they are innovating products and processes appropriately, helping customers with their buying decisions, and ultimately making sure that we're bringing the best kind of products to market is what helps us to stay relevant and competitive and continue to use sustainability as a strategic business enabler.
Perfectly said, perfectly summarized. So, Amy, Travis, thank you both for your insights. I learned a lot and really enjoyed having the chance to just facilitate these great conversations. So, thank you both for your time and your expertise. And more importantly, thanks to all of you who joined us. Thanks for asking your questions. And of course, if you have anything for us, feel free to ping us on LinkedIn and let us know. We are happy to help. So, with that, Renee, I'll kick it back to you to close things out and introduce the next panel.
Sure, thank you. I had a couple questions, if you don't mind, on my end.
Sure, we do.
And everybody in the audience, please feel free to put your any questions you might have for panelists in the chat. Happy to answer those as well. So I guess on my end, starting out, Amy, Travis, can you share any example of how an ESG initiative helped your organization not just manage risk, but actually unlock new opportunities and drive growth? Sorry, that was a lot.
No, that's good. I can share some examples. And I would say that the transparency documentation is can be viewed as a risk for a lot of companies because you're openly sharing the ingredients of your product, where it was sourced, how it was made, and so that can be very risky. The benefit that we've seen from that is there are some very rigorous and specific types of green building certification programs. So one of them is called the Living Building Challenge. They follow a strict red list. If your product contains anything in their red list, they're typically not going to include it in their project. You'll see buildings like this at Harvard University. You'll see the Living Building Challenge for many types of end users. So you're rewarded as a manufacturer for taking the risk to show everything that's in your product, and allowing that customer to make the decision based on you being completely transparent. It's actually a benefit for us as a manufacturer because then we have the information to go ahead and optimize that product to make it better, because now we know what's in it and if there's changes that need to be made.
Yeah, I think from a governance perspective as well, this has been beneficial. We have EcoVadis ESG reporting, Amy and I we are very familiar with ESG reporting in general. It's they're
Renee
pretty
knows all about
comprehensive.
that too.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
So they're pretty comprehensive, right? So, but it's become a customer requirement for several of our customers, right? So if we don't have a self-governing mechanism in place, then we don't win contracts. So, or we could potentially lose a contract because of that. And it's not just EcoVadis; it could be, Responsible Business Alliance or any other ESG kind of platform and program. So it's important for us to be able to not only be able to have the self-assessments done, but to show that we're improving in these arenas as well. So and show that we have goals and objectives to not only meet kind of a benchmark standard, but to exceed that as well. So
That's awesome. Thank you both. And yes, I am extremely familiar with EcoVadis. We could have a long talk about that.
oh, over a
we do
beer.
have it's so much fun. We do have a question in the chat. It says, what can I do towards ESG initiatives in my day-to-day work, working in a manufacturing/distribution environment? So maybe not just manufacturing, but also a distribution environment as well.
Yeah, that's like 90% of our factories. So yeah, so typically we have that. I think act as a canvasser. I mean, act as one of these, your champions that we call them, right? So it doesn't necessarily have to be an official designation, but I do think influence is impactful. So I think promoting positive behaviors, making sure you have shut down procedures, maybe even bringing to light to facilities management and whatnot. That you can optimize your manufacturing by doing XYZ, replacing LED exhibiting fluorescent lights with LED lights, and doing just looking at the overall energy efficiencies of your facility, and even comes down to the little things like recycling. I know that sounds very like um, I don't want to say childish, but going back to the schoolyard days, right? They tell you to, make sure you have proper waste segregation practices, et cetera. So I think that really is impactful as well. It's really the small things that matter, and not everybody sees it that way, but it truly is. It's the small behaviors that add up.
Yeah, I think we as sustainability people, we are so close to it that it's really important to ask questions too. I am guilty of this, of just making assumptions of what I think people want and need when it comes to ESG initiatives and sustainability. And so I would, even suggest something like hosting a town hall where your employees have the chance to come to you with their ideas or their thoughts and give their suggestions of what they would like to see. That's always really helpful too.
Right, I like that. A final question on my end. I think all of us currently on the screen kind of work for global organizations. How would you what recommendations would you have when you work for a global organization, taking that or thinking about ESG differently, like global strategy versus local initiative? I guess a little bit to the question that we had, right, is there's these global initiatives that we're all trying to achieve. How do we change those initiatives to boots on the ground?
Maybe, but local impacts feed into that. So, I mean, act local, think global type dynamics. So, because there's these small moments that we do in our daily lives that really matter, that have an impact, right? So we may be thinking that it's just, in my own community or whatnot, but no, these things do matter. So, and being a part of the community. In fact, we encourage our employees and our sites globally to engage in corporate social responsibility activities and initiatives because we want to see that level of engagement. And we, at the end, our employees are an extension of the organization. So what they do in their lives and how we operate, again, it goes back to the fundamental things, the code of conduct and how we want to be perceived as an organization. It's important.
Amy, did you want to?
I would just say taking an entrepreneurial approach, right? And
I
we
like
talk
that.
a lot about being entrepreneurs, but if we're already in an organization, we have the chance to be entrepreneurs because we probably have a budget to work with and a team that can help us. But so understanding that we have a big footprint and we are a large organization, but we can still think like a startup and think on our feet and be nimble in the way that we approach sustainability.
I like that a lot. Being, yeah, I like that nimble, for sure. Well,
Easier
thank you
said than
all.
done.
Definitely. Light on your feet is a must and when you work in sustainability. So thank you all. I really appreciate your time today, or we appreciate your time and the topics that you covered, you know, while very wide, very topics, really relevant, a lot of, you know, what you had to say. I very much resonated with myself and kind of what I do for the company that I work for in my role. So thank you all for your time. We're gonna take a short break to 1:05 Eastern and start back with leveraging physical security solutions to make organizations more sustainable. Thank you all. Give us just a couple minutes. We'll be right back. Thanks.
Thank you.